Okay, I believe we have our technical difficulties now fixed. We now welcome Michael Benjamin, Associate Editorial Page Editor of the New York Post. And Mike, good to have you.
Thank you, Darren. Glad to be on this morning.
Let me ask this question, Mike. For those people who looked at last week's Democratic results, when we talk about the results, the Democratic Party here in the state of New York, we saw a couple of upsets, particularly in the IDC. How much did you feel about the IDC and what that really played out in the minds of voters?
Well, I think what played in the minds of voters was the year-long or more association with the IDC, with the Republican Senate majority or slim majority in Albany, and then you had the election of Donald Trump, and New York is a hotbed of anti-Trump activism. I think the IDC members, even though they were Democrats and hewed to many Democratic views, they still were somewhat aligned with Republicans up in Albany. And so once they had that taint of being aligned with Republicans, it sort of spelled their doom, despite their somewhat popularity over the last 10, 15 years with their voters. The insurgents who beat them, they did the old-fashioned way. They organized, and they brought new voters, their voters, to the polls. That's the only way to beat incumbents is to bring a new set of voters to the polls. And they worked with them over the past year or so. Had their own money to spend, worked on social media and kept it up. And surprise, 6 out of the 8 IDC members and defeated them. And so you'll have fresh faces going to Albany. And, one great aspect is that many of them are women. And, I had written a piece last year saying the Democratic Party in the Bronx missed an opportunity to support more women for city council slots. Well, now the Bronx is going to have a female addition to the congressional delegation. You'll have Alessandra Biaggi will be going to the state senate, another young woman. I think that's important for the party. It's important for women both in the Bronx and in New York City, and across the nation that women are running for office and voters are putting them in office when they have the right program.
Mike, how much do we attribute this to either A, low voter turnout, or B, just a simple upset?
Oh no, this had nothing to do with low voter turnout. As I said, the insurgents who won, they brought voters to the polls, and I know in the 34th Senate, the Klein-Biaggi race, you had close to 25% turnout, which was almost double what it was the last time there was a primary, I believe in 2014, between Senator Klein and a challenger. At the time, I think it might have been Oliver Coppell. So turnout doubled in that district all across the city and all across the state. Even in the gubernatorial race, we had a much higher turnout than 4 years ago when Governor Cuomo was challenged by Zephyr Teachout. So, voters were energized. I think a lot of it has to do with new energy coming from the election of Donald Trump to the presidency. People recognize that every vote counts, and now they're getting out there and making sure that their voices can be heard on a local level. And I think the results of last Thursday demonstrate that. I mean, 25% turnout is not great, but when you've only had 10 to 12% turnout in the past, 25% is an earthquake.
Talk to me about the governor's race for a minute. Obviously, Governor Cuomo defeating Cynthia Nixon handily, but yet and still a lot of questions about whether or not she was actually able to bring the governor over to the other side a little bit more. Will we see Governor Cuomo move more to the other side, given the fact that Cynthia Nixon was able to get some traction and particularly able to get some of the issues that she wanted to have discussed?
No, I think by the other side you mean more left than center, correct?
Right.
All right, more progressive things. During the whole run up to the race, every time Cynthia Nixon would say something about a progressive policy, suddenly the governor would be in agreement. Yesterday, I believe it was Monday in the Bronx, the kickoff of the statewide tour on marijuana reform was held, and because of Cynthia Nixon's pushing the issue during her run for governor, Cuomo decided that maybe he'll take a closer look at legalizing instituting some marijuana reforms. You have a number of other things that she had talked about that he began moving left to because he understood where the winds were blowing. And as a seasoned politician and a survivalist, the governor wants to survive politically. Many of us believe he wants to run for president. And he began to tack to the left more progressive issues, more progressive things, beyond protecting abortion, beyond gay marriage, other kinds of issues that are important to constituents at this time. And I think part of his victory and part of the other fact was that Ms. Nixon really wasn't experienced enough, I think, in many voters' minds to be the next governor of New York, despite her good positions in their view on many important progressive issues, whether it's single-payer health, it's marijuana reform, reforming cash bail, those things that are important to many people these days.
Yeah, very important topics of discussion, particularly here for New Yorkers and in the borough of the Bronx. Let me take a quick run right quick. I only have less than a minute left, but I want to take a run down to Washington right quick. Talk to me about the Kavanaugh nomination. Obviously, the testimony, his alleged accuser will also have the ability to testify. Does Kavanaugh still have enough steam to be confirmed?
From what I'm hearing among the Republicans, he seems to have. I think they're going to make it a straight party line vote, unless there's absolute evidence that what he's accused of actually did happen and resulted in harm to Miss Ford, to Professor Ford. It's the fact that it came out so late. It raises suspicions in the minds of Republicans that it was a political hit, a last-minute Hail Mary to try to derail his nomination. And then you have those who are thinking about, 35 years ago, they're both teenagers. How good are their memories? And it's to me, it's a no-win situation. But the president, I think, is intent on having Kavanaugh as his judicial nominee. And the Republicans, I think, don't want to cave to Democrats unless there's some sort of smoking gun that shows that Mr. Kavanaugh did commit a violent act against Professor Ford, and that her memory is absolutely, spot on. I would not want to be in their shoes come Monday. The FBI is in a tough spot, having to try to investigate something that's occurred 35 years ago among teenagers who were at a party, who may have been drinking, and whose memories, may have faded over time. So it's a very tough spot to be in.
Yeah, true indeed. Mike Benjamin, thank you so much for coming and sharing with us here on Open, giving us a little bit about the state of politics here in New York, and of course, with the Kavanaugh nomination. Mike, thanks a lot.
All right, thank you, Daren.
All righty, taking a quick break. We've got more show. We want you to stay with us. We'll return right after this.